Thank you so much for clicking this video. This is Battle with Ola. My name is Mujola Oluwa, and today we want to talk about a very important topic. We want to talk about agency in law in Nigeria. Agency is a highly misconstrued subject matter, and I say this as a mediator because I do a lot of tenancies. Matter of fact, I think about 60% of my mediations bother on tenancy disputes, and I have often realized that and I have come to the realization rather that most agents don't even understand the concept of agency, and likewise tenants do not understand it. But we're not talking about agency just in the context of agents, landlord tenant relations in real estate. We want to talk about agency in law, and then we'll touch the different manifestations of agency in day-to-day relations. Don't forget to subscribe to this channel and like the video if you love what you see, and don't forget to leave comments in the comment section. I want to say at this point that please, before you send me a mail at houseoflivingstones@gmail.com, make sure there's a legitimate and a genuine interest. That sounds like data privacy, but what I'm saying is that please, if it's a question you've already left on the channel, I will attend to it. Gmail, Google that governs YouTube also governs Gmail. So if you have if you've left a comment on YouTube, I will receive the notification in my mail. Sending me that same comment or those same set of questions by email is like duplicating functions. It's not necessary, and it's important so that we don't clog up the email for people who want to also send some other things. So please make sure that if you're sending a mail to houseoflivingstones@gmail.com, you're making a genuine inquiry, or maybe you have a collaboration option for opportunity for me, or you have something very important and genuine to discuss which has not yet been addressed on the channel or by your comments on the channel. Thank you very much. And if you want to book a paid consultation session with me, the link is always in the description box. If you're at a loss, please mail me and ask for a link to book a paid session, and it will be sent to you as soon as possible. Thank you very much, and thank you for spreading the word about Battle with Ola. Thank you so much. So let's talk about agency. Agency is a relationship in law that confers legal authority on one person to act on behalf of another person. So let's say we have A and we have B. Now, when we can say that agency arises is when A gives or confers legal authority on B to act on his own behalf. So maybe A can do something, and then maybe A is not available to do that thing or exercise such power, and then he delegates, confers that power onto B that do this thing on my behalf as if I'm the one doing it. That's the simplest way to understand agency. So there must be two parties. They don't necessarily have to be two individuals. It could be an entity and an individual, or an individual and an entity, or two entities. Entities in law could be a corporation, a company, a business, an authority. Now, if you have given that power that you have as an authority or a business to someone or to another entity to exercise such powers on your behalf, we can say that you have created what is known as agency. Agency arises in different types of relations. I've talked about real estate briefly before. That's some kind of agency between the landlord and a person called an agent. So a real estate agent can act on behalf of the landlord or the property owner. We can also have it in insurance. An insurance agent can act on behalf of the insurance company. We can have sales agents acting on behalf of their employers. And we can also have talent agents in the creative world and in the sports world who act on behalf of talents that they represent. Maybe footballers, musicians, artists, and artists. Artists and artists. One has an E, that's what I'm trying to say. So it could be that. So these are some of the typologies of agents and agency relationships that we have in day-to-day life. I hope you get it. Agency can be express or implied. Express in the sense that a deed may be created, conferring that legal authority on the agent, by the principal. So the principal is the one conferring the authority, and the agent is the one receiving the authority to exercise it on behalf of the principal. So there's a kind of trust and fiduciary relationship that exists between the principal and the agent. mandating the agent to act in good faith in the exercise of the authority and the power conferred on him by the principal. So, but it can be implied as well. For express agencies, two things must be manifest: an offer and an acceptance. So there must be a principal offering or asking to confer that power. Okay, for instance, let's use real estate. So I am a landlord. I own a property in Banana Island now. I need someone to manage it for me. So I'm searching, scouting for an agent, a real estate agent. Could be a company, could be an individual that can manage that property for me. Do everything that I can do concerning that property: collect rents, repair, carry out repairs, sell the property, lease the property, everything I can do, they can do. So I can scout for them and offer them these terms, that this is what I want you to do for me regarding this property. So that's an offer. And then there must be an acceptance. That is, the entity or the individual must accept and say, yes, we are ready to do this for you. We will manage your property. We will sell it if you're asking us to do that. We will carry out repairs. We will interface with your tenants. We get tenants in and get tenants out of the property. We'll pay all accruing rents and rates on your behalf, as we generate revenue, and so on and so forth. So there must be an offer and an acceptance, just like in a simple contract. So someone must have offered to confer their powers on another person, and that other person must accept to exercise the powers on their behalf. So agency can be express and agency can be implied. Implied in the sense that someone can begin to exercise the power of a principal and as such become an agent. So once you start to exercise powers conferred on you, or powers that someone is supposed to exercise by virtue of the relationship you have with them, we can say that you're an agent. For instance, in an employment relationship, an employee can act on behalf of the employer. So we would say that it's implied in their contract of employment that the employee is an agent of the employer. So it might not be necessarily stated in the contract of employment, and it can also be expressly stated that these are the things you are to do for us as an agent of this company, even though you're an employee. So for instance, a bank staff can do certain things on behalf of the bank. There's an agency relationship. That would mean that when you see the bank staff acting in such manners, the bank will be liable. And that leads us to the next thing: what kind of liabilities arise and duties under an agency relationship. The liability that arises is that once the agent acts for the principal, the consequences of the agent's actions are binding on the principal. So an agent is not only exercising the power, but also sending back the results of the power exercised to the principal. So we can say that in a sense, a principal is vicariously liable, although vicarious liability is an entire topic on its own in law of torts, which we have already talked about in this video about 2 years ago. I hope you find the video and watch it. But in a way, we can say that a principal is vicariously liable for the acts of his agents, and you can also apply the principle of respondeat superior. That would mean that let the superior respond. So for instance, if an agent of a principal does something and becomes liable in law, and the victim of that act or the result of that act is suing the agent, he can also, or she can also, sue the principal. So both of them can be sued together as opposed to suing just the agent. That's the principle of respondeat superior. The superior will answer for the acts of their agent, and that would also lead us to the principle of a disclosed principal not being liable. So in another light, instead of suing the agent and the principal, you can just go straight off and sue the principal if an injury has arisen from the action of the agent, and that is on the basis of the fact that the agent of a disclosed principal is not liable. For instance, the president appoints the CBN governor, the president appoints the Controller General of Customs in Nigeria, and several other offices, the Inspector General of Police. So we can say that in that relationship, the president is the principal, donating powers to those sets of people in those offices, and as such is their principal. So if you go by the principle of respondeat superior, you can sue them, and the principal, that's the president, that is, you can hold them responsible, although the principle of immunity of executives will protect the president. We've talked about that also on the channel last year, late last year. Please watch it if you haven't. So that can happen, or you can say that the president is a disclosed principal, so he should be liable for the acts of people like that. But I've already told you the caveat involved. So you could take it away from the president and those people's relationships and bring it into everyday life. When you know the principal of an agent, you can just hold them responsible, not necessarily suing all the time, but holding them responsible for the acts of their agent, because they are a disclosed principal. You know them. In case where you don't know them, you can just sue the agent or hold the agent liable, direct. But the agent of a disclosed principal is generally in law not liable. Another thing to call to mind is that agents represent the interest of their principal. So sometimes Nigerians like to play good cop, bad cop, and I'm saying this as a lawyer, a litigation lawyer, and as a mediator, because of the experiences that I've had in different cases that I've handled. Sometimes you know that you're talking or interfacing with an agent, and they're telling you something, and then you go behind them, and then you go to talk to their principal. The principal is telling you another thing. Make no mistakes, the agent and the principal are one and the same for the purposes of being held liable, for their acts or the results of their acts. So sometimes those people like to play good cop, bad cop. For instance, in a tenancy matter now, an agent could be speaking to a tenant that the landlord wants you out of his property. I've served you quit notice. I'm going to court. I've served you 7 days owner's intention to recover possession. Please watch those videos. We've done videos on tenancies on this channel, several videos. So I'm going to go to court and evict you. And then maybe the landlord personally, maybe he's a member of your golf club, or you eat suya together every Friday at some joint. And then you're talking to the landlord or the landlady, and they're telling you, don't worry, be at peace. Don't mind that agent, he's doing what he likes. Don't worry. Meanwhile, they are instructing the agent, get those people out of my property. So the agent becomes the bad person to you. Meanwhile, they are only fulfilling the act of the landlord or landlady, and the landlady is trying to play good cop with you because they don't want to look bad. And we had a client, very early in my practice, we had a client at our office who had such robust, wonderful relations with his tenants, such that they even come to his house to watch football. They were owing several months arrears of rent, but he could not evict them because he could not, in a way, he couldn't talk to them. So he came to our office, told us to get them out. When the process was slowing down, he came to our office, was like, why are you people not doing what I asked you to do? This and that. Meanwhile, the tenants will come to us and tell us that we watch football in this man's house. I still saw him this morning. Did you talk to him about this rent? Did he ask you for any? He didn't ask me for anything. So they felt that, can it be that this man wants to get us out? This man that's so nice to us. Meanwhile, the man is coming behind and, tightening the rope on our own necks that, get them out, get them out. So make no mistakes. If there's an agent that the landlord has identified and told you, especially in real estate situations, that this is my agent, this is the person that has the power to act on my behalf concerning my property, concerning especially in rent situations. In most cases, that person is acting on behalf of the landlord, except you can confirm otherwise. If not, do not think that because you have a good rapport with the landlord, the instructions to maybe get you out or get the money that you owe are not from him. Those instructions usually are from your landlord. So the agent is acting on behalf of the landlord or landlady in that situation. So what are the duties? I think the overarching duty of an agent is to act in the best interests of the principal, the person who donated the power that he or she is exercising. So that's the most important duty, to act in the best interest, and that's where fiduciary relationship comes in. So that means that the agent is bound to exercise utmost good faith, prima fides, in their relations with the principal and with everyone that they have to relate with on behalf of the principal, because that power is donated power. It can be taken away. It's not inherent. So the agent has a duty to exercise it judiciously. So that's the most important. But some other duties are duties to give account for monies received or spent. So if, for instance, you have an insurance agent who is selling insurance on behalf of an insurance company, they have a duty when they have sold to give an account of the number of insurance packages that they were able to sell, how many customers they got for the company, how much revenue that is bringing into the company. If they have spent any monies on behalf of the insurance company, they have a duty to give account. Two, they also, or three now, because we talked about the most important duty, and the second is to give account. Third would be to protect the confidential information of the principal. Very important. It's a trust relationship. So an agent must be someone that can protect the confidential information of the principal. An agent also has a duty of loyalty to the principal. That goes without saying. An agent must be loyal to the principal. An agent also has a duty to act or relate with third parties in good faith on behalf of the principal. So we should not have an agent that would be sabotaging the principal or that would be treating third parties shabbily, because to third parties, like I've explained, whatever is being done by the agent is done by the principal. So if you're an agent, you're a donee of any power to be exercised on behalf of a principal, it's important for you to act in good faith. For instance, in a bank customer relationship, the banker is an agent of the bank acting on behalf of the bank in relation with third parties, that's customers. It's important for you to treat them very well and to treat them with utmost good faith. We find some bankers that treat customers shabbily. Also in different other relationships, sales agents, for instance, in Nigeria, you walk into a pharmacy, you walk into a restaurant, and you see how some sales agents treat you so shabbily, and you wonder, is this the interest, or is this what their principal wants? So you must relate as an agent with third parties, in good faith. An agent also has a duty to follow and obey the instruction of the principal. So it is not for the agent to begin to act ultra vires or ultra vires, that is outside of the powers donated to him or her. You can watch the video on power of attorney as well. These things are interrelated, but they are distinct as well. So an agent must follow and obey the instructions of the principal. An agent must also act with reasonable care and skill. So it's not in every situation that we would now start asking, did your principal ask you to do A, B, C, D? Not necessarily, but if the principal is given an instruction, it is up to the agent to exercise the necessary care and skill to execute that instruction. For instance, if you're a real estate agent, we go back to that example because they just be agents straightforward, so it's easier to use that example. If you're a real estate agent, you already have power to sell, power to getting tenants, get out tenants, to recover areas of rent, to collect rents when due, to recover the areas when overdue, and several other things. Your principal does not have to tell you, write a quit notice to this defaulting tenant. You should know that it should be implied that after some time, if a tenant has not paid, you should write to demand rent or write to evict the tenant, or if the tenant is going contrary to the covenants in the tenancy agreement. For instance, if a tenant is already going contrary to the tenancy agreement, it's implied that as an agent, you know that the next thing to do would be to issue a quit notice. So you shouldn't be waiting for your principal to come and tell you that, because in most cases, the reason why the principal has donated that power to you to be exercised on his behalf is because they do not have the time, they do not have the latitude, or they do not even want to relate with that third party directly. So I find that in most instances, especially for real estate agents, they act in such shoddy and shabby manner that the principal still has to come in at some point. That does not reflect you as a good agent that knows what he or she is doing. If your principal has donated powers to you to be exercised on his behalf, if your principal has empowered you as an agent, it is so that he doesn't have to come in and exercise those powers himself. So you should exercise reasonable care and skill. We would ask the question, what should an agent of that has been given this so and so power do in this instance, and you should just go ahead and do that. So that does not mean you should act outside of your powers, but it does not also mean that your principal will have to tell you everything A to Z. So these are some of the most important considerations in agency law in Nigeria, or in agency relations in Nigeria. I welcome comments in the comment section. That's all I want to talk to you about for now. I'll see you in my very next video. Don't forget to subscribe. Toodles.